Hello, everyone. This is Priyadeep or PD from the Global Alliance for Mass Entrepreneurship or GAME. GAME, as a lot of you know today, is a platform for mission-aligned partners to learn and collaboratively build a mass entrepreneurship ecosystem across India. 60 Days, 60 Voices is a knowledge series that we created in light of the COVID crisis. And our idea here is to speak to key stakeholders in the Indian ecosystem to collaboratively enable small and micro businesses to come back to life in the post-COVID world. Today at 60 Days 60 Voices, we have with us Mr. Sanjay Joshi. Sanjay is the regional managing principal at ZS, a global consulting firm, and he heads the Asia practice. We are very happy to have him here. Sanjay, wonderful to have you with us, and thank you for joining us for the 60 Day 60 Voices call.
Sure, PD. Glad to be with you.
Thank you so much. So I think I'll begin by asking you, based on your views and the the work that ZS does, what do the long and short term impacts of COVID-19 look like?
Yeah. So of course, PD, the impact of COVID certainly has been devastating thus far. And these kinds of events certainly are one of those happen a couple of times a century at most. So really the scale, the scope, and the intensity of it has for the economy has been quite brutal. And particularly for India, which had perhaps one of the most stringent lockdowns, it has literally a very sobering impact on our economy. And as you know, kind of there are projections, and there are many projections, but some of the projections are now converging on that we will the GDP for the fiscal year 2019 2020 2021 will be down by 5 points, 5% dip in GDP in the fiscal year 2021, which is quite a contrast from our growth in the previous years. And India was just kind of coming out of a we clocked 4 to 5% in 19. Right. So it's been quite a brutal, devastating impact. And also it has been cross-sectional in some sense, across industries, across sectors. Of course, while it has been cross-sectional, its impact has been a little differential also. Some sectors, some industry, PD, are kind of facing the brunt a little bit more, say an airline or a hospitality, versus some of the more, say, pharmaceuticals, where ZS has a very strong presence in, kind of doing relatively okay. Again, it's all relative. Right. Similarly, some of the essential segments of FMCG, they have been doing relatively okay. So yes, everyone has been hurt, continues to hurt in the short term, but a little bit differential impact.
Understood. I think that seems to be the case across the country. In fact, would also be outside India as well. So moving on and talking about recovery, and I would like to ask you about your thoughts on the recovery from where we are today. And also the second question on recovery is there a combined and collective way of doing this? I mean, moving towards recovery where the government, corporates, other organizations all work together, or is it going to be a very solo approach? And I think each segment or each sector will sort of see its own journey to recovery. What do you think of that?
Yeah. So first of all, I think all kinds of people, very smart people, are making all kinds of projections. I'm just not sure if any of those projections anyone can say with certainty.
Right.
And you can pick up your letter of the alphabet to describe the nature of the recovery, a U recovery, a V recovery, a W recovery, all kinds of recovery models are being projected. And it is the only thing I would say, the only thing that is uh, uh, certain is the uncertainty of the uh, nature of the recovery that we'll see, given the vastly different signals that we are all seeing. To your point, clearly, the measures of recovery are being done at several levels. You know, at the very macro level, you are seeing fiscal measures, fiscal stimulus from the government. You are seeing monetary stimulus from the RBI. So you're seeing certainly at the macro level, both fiscal and monetary stimulus. Um, uh, to be seen how much impact they would have. Is the quantum enough? Is the impact or the intended benefits do indeed reach out to the intended beneficiary, e.g. the disadvantaged migrant labor, for instance, which has been disproportionately hurt by the circumstance. So yes, those macro interventions are certainly being applied. At the company level, at the company and sectoral level, PD, of course, everyone is working through their own scenarios, working through what will trigger there are some set of assumptions that companies are working with, assumptions around consumer sentiment, assumptions around customer behavior, assumptions around how quickly they can get supply chain disruptions back to normal, so to speak. So everyone is working with a set of assumptions in their belief around customer and consumer and supply chain and talent. And based on their different assumptions, everyone is kind of working with a scenario and the corresponding trigger points for them to manage scenario A versus scenario B. So I would say that every company is finding its own path, a little nuanced path. Some sectors will kind of rebound back because there is a pent-up demand. Other sectors may still be a little bit more drawn out recovery, as again, for example, meetings and conferences and large gatherings. It is to be seen how comfortable people get in getting back to those kinds of environments. So the impact on the corresponding industries likely will be drawn out.
Got it. Yeah. So I think you're saying that it's going to be different for different kinds of sectors at least. I think moving to the next question. I think every difficult situation has in the past brought numerous opportunities for from in a different way, and I think there were people who got advantaged or who took advantage of such a situation, even in a case like this, right, which is unprecedented, which we don't know of, which we have never seen before. Uh, it would also bring out like new opportunities for people, right? So where do you see the silver lining in terms of opportunities for businesses in such a case, such as COVID?
So first of all, the thing that comes to mind, PD, is a crisis is a terrible thing to waste, right? So so for sure, um, in spite of all that we all are going through, companies and individuals and countries, um, it would be almost criminal if we didn't find the silver linings, as you were mentioning. So a couple of thoughts come to mind, PD. First, I think in some, you know, uh, good way, I would say, this was a nature's way of pushing the pause button. It was a, uh, it was kind of, while it was forced, I think it gave all of us, individuals and countries and companies, time to reflect. I think everyone, companies and individuals, were on a certain growth path, and in some sense, growth at all costs. Uh, and work was all consuming. At individual level, the time to be with families, I think, with companies, time to think about their practices, their processes. So in some sense, I think it was a kind of a nice pause in the way things were going. They were kind of on a tier, as I said. So the first, I think, good thing that we all should celebrate is I think it was a not the way it was imposed on us, but
Right.
now that it is here, something for us to, I think, just reflect on assumptions that our companies are working in, assumptions under which we were embarking on talent, serving customers, etc. I think something for us to reflect on. Uh, Second, I think something like this, the silver lining is also in how we redesign the future of work, PD. I think that is another big thing that this will unleash in
Right.
terms of, again, all kinds of assumptions had been built into our operating models, and many of those will be questioned because during this time, some of the, like for example in IT services, in professional services, in the white collar office work, productivity by and large has been able to maintain even in work from home environment. So many companies will rethink if if work and office have to always travel together. It will be some delinking between the two. People will question, and people like TCS have already made a big public remarks around, in next several years, 75% of their staff will work from home. So I think it's some assumptions that we built in for office work, for white collar work. Some hybrid model will emerge. Some will take 20%, 50, 75, everyone to decide. But I think that will unleash all derivative changes in kind of real estate, in travel patterns, transportation purchases. So all kinds of derivatives, second, third order effects will come into play because of how we redesign the future of work. Another element of future of work, for instance, is um, is kind of our engagement with our clients. Again, coming from a professional services consulting world, this has given immense opportunity for our people to connect directly with clients and have much more empathy with clients. Generally, you were doing this video call from here, but they were in their offices, right?
Right.
But now everyone is on the Zoom call, and you are a little bit more vulnerable, and in showing everyone, because everyone is going through a similar experience. So I think this empathy with clients, with customers, I think that has improved a ton. And this kind of a model will, again, people from places like India will have a lot more opportunity to get closer
Right.
to clients, etc. So I think that's probably another example of how the future of work could change, in addition to what I said about the all the effects of working from home on a much larger scale. A very different class of things from a silver lining standpoint is all of us uh, will be forced to think about different models of growth,
Right.
PD. For what do I mean by that? For instance, uh, I think, as I said, we were growing growth. The mindset for large segment of the economy was growth at all cost. I think sustainability was getting into the conversation.
Right.
From an interesting conversation, I think it will become more mainstream now. More inclusive growth, more sustainable growth, I
Right.
think would be the one of the elements that will be more in our conversations. Similarly, this globalization was proceeding at a certain pace because of the disruption in global supply chain, because of concentration of manufacturing in a country or two. I think people are rethinking about that. So kind of a move towards back to some more local and national level, uh, that will have some shift in on impact on trade. So I think the global to local move will perhaps happen in light of in the aftermath of COVID. And third, I would say again, digital, which of course which has been underway for some time,
Right.
which become will digital growth, digital as a uh, from being a channel to becoming a the channel or important channel will become critical. So the models of growth, global, from global to local, from growth at all costs to more sustainable, inclusive growth, from digital as an important element to becoming the element perhaps in many segments and sectors. Those are the kinds of models of growth and silver lining, I think, that will emerge out of this PD.
That's actually wonderfully said, Sanjay. In fact, I think so. Since there is so much to look forward to, I wanted to ask you about your message to MSMEs. Who like got a jolt, and a lot of them faced substantial losses in the last few months,
Yeah.
and they would begin their path to recovery now, right? So, what would your message for such businesses be at this point of time?
Yeah. I think, um, first of all, again, entrepreneurs and small and medium enterprises are generally very resourceful. So they, as I said, yes, they go through challenges in the normal course of things, but this was of a scale and scope that was just too brutal. So as they get back to work, I think finding creative ways to engage labor and matching labor and getting some of their business restarted, I think, is more the immediate concern, particularly in the context of India, PD,
Right.
given that many of them have been really adversely affected by the movement of labor, and many of them are not that willing or easy to come back. So what can they do in terms of reskilling, in terms of the payment plans, in terms of the contracts to re-engage the labor? That's kind of the now and here and immediate. But the larger point, I'll go back to what I said earlier, PD. Be it a large enterprise or be it a small, medium enterprise, I think to take digital super seriously. It is not
Right.
just what large companies do. Small, medium companies have to embrace it with as much ferociousness as anyone else. Digital technology is not a thing. In fact, I would go on to the extent of saying every business is a technology business now. Every business is a digital business now. So, be it if you are delivering milk, if you are making paper cups, if you are making a steel fitting, find a way to drive that through digital engagement, be
Right.
it through your customer digital distribution, digital delivery, digital sense of customer engagement, digital supply chains. I think, and some of them may not have the resources and breadth of technical talent to help them, but then have contractors or vendors that they can in their local areas engage those to beef up their because it's not something that large companies do. They need to get equally conversant with it. Digital this time it was a COVID related disruption, but 3-4 years out, if they do not prepare themselves fast enough, robust enough, then they will be disrupted by the lack of digital capability. It's
Right.
a tsunami that is coming, and they have a choice to kind of ride it or be at the risk of drowning in it. So that would be my kind of one thing, is to get on with digital with a vengeance and get on with that program.
I do hope that they sort of pick on that and start moving more towards it. I think we're seeing trends of that happening, but I think it needs to be in larger quantum. So with that,
Yeah,
like sort of brings to the end of all my questions, Sanjay. As always, thank you so much. It's wonderful speaking with you, and it's fantastic to talk to you and ZS, and and work with you and ZS through some of our projects. So thank you so much.
Very nice, PD. Thanks for the time. Good luck. Cheers.
Cheers.